picture of compassion. And anyway, it sounds like I'm lying. Yes, I've heard the world has conspired to steal away your God-given right to a happy home and comfortable children. Next, you'll sue them for abandoning you. So bite your tongue. You're not the only one who's been let down. Bite your tongue. Maybe it's good for you to hit the ground. Oh Christ, it's gonna sound like
Duncan Sheik, ladies and gentlemen. He could have written this song this weekend. It's a pretty old song, actually. But it could be about the present moment. As many great songs are, they have multiple applications over time. All right, so it's Ask or Tell Me Anything. That means we have open lines here. The number is 888-720-9677. That is otherwise discernible as 888-720-WNPR. There are no guests planned for today. We have only you. So go ahead, call in. I'm assuming people want to talk about the election, or secondarily, maybe the Olympics, or I don't know how to make that into an adverb. Or third, you might want to talk about something much more obscure than that. And it's all fine. 888-720-9677. That's 888-720-WNPR. I'm just going to begin, because there are no calls yet, to talk a little bit about some of the things that I see happening in this election. First of all, I think the Democrats have made kind of an interesting choice here over the last. Everything that you talk about in terms of this election now has about a 48-hour lifespan. So when I say the Democrats have made an interesting choice, I'm not talking about the choice like a week ago to almost immediately solidify behind Kamala Harris. I'm actually talking about the choice of the word weird. You can hear it, and there are even now supercuts now up on the social medias of various Democrats. I think it starts with Tim Walz from Minnesota, and just talking about the general weirdness of the Trump campaign or the Trump-Vance campaign. I will also say, parenthetically, in terms of weirdness, I feel like almost a little bit sorry for J.D. Vance in the sense that he's now I don't feel very sorry for J.D. Vance. That would take a lot more for me to feel very sorry for J.D. Vance. But he's kind of being memeified about stuff that, the couch thing is not a real thing. It's somebody's joke that has started to be taken very seriously. Now, if you look at the universe in terms of equilibrium, maybe that's fair. The number of things that Donald Trump and his adherents have said that they didn't mean and weren't real, that have been taken seriously, is that it's the stars in the sky. You couldn't count them all. But I still feel a little bit sorry for Vance. The couch thing isn't real. The porpoise thing is a little... it's not real exactly, but it isn't quite as maybe detached from him. And then there's this new thing, Ben Yagoda, the great writer Ben Yagoda, who's got a very interesting book coming out this year, was pointing out on the social medias today that there's a quote that he gave about his wife, which is actually a very nice quote and speaks well of him. It's about how he started to understand prejudice and the kind of verbal and emotional abuse endured by other people by watching the way that his wife was treated. But it's sort of been distributed in edited form and stuff like that. So I don't want this to be any indication that I'm not, generally speaking, appalled by J.D. Vance. But there is, ultimately you want to see the game played by rules that you'd be willing to live with. And so I think the game should be played. Now, what I see on social media being done to Kamala Harris right now is it makes this look like nothing. It is just unbelievable. And I think kind of a sign of panic as well, the way that they've gone after her and just made up all kinds of horrible stuff and Photoshop things and everything. So, I mean, it would be nice if this whole thing could be argued out on the basis of facts, but I think that is maybe a little naive. However adorable you may find me for saying that, I think it's a little naive. All right, so let's talk to Steve from Hartford. Once again, the number is 888-720-9677, 888-720-WNPR. Hi, Steve.
Hey, good afternoon. How are you?
Just fine.
So, my comment is really, and maybe I misinterpret this, but
Did you turn left there? Because you were supposed to turn left. I don't want you to miss your turn.
No, I'm sitting on the side, but it still wants me to turn.
Okay. All right, continue.
Hey, so my question is how Donald Trump holds his fist up that resembles the white power symbols, and why he would still use that if it's inappropriate, or even it looks inappropriate. Is that something that other people talk about?
I think it has been said. I mean, I think he gets a pass. The bloody ear incident in Pennsylvania. I think he gets a pass on that one. I think he was just trying to be triumphant, and kind of Marvel comic book hero. But fist up. Look, I mean, once again, this fits into a pattern. I'm decided I would go back and read some of Jeffrey Toobin's book on Timothy McVeigh. And one of the things that Toobin is really eager to point out is how much of the stuff that McVeigh embraced and believed in and helped to circulate became very much the rhetoric of the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers and the people like that who wound up at the Capitol on January 6th, and how much Donald Trump has kind of embraced that stuff and tried to make it part and parcel of his presumed constituency. So I think keeping your antennae up and asking yourself every time, what kind of gesture is this? What's the dog whistle? What's the subliminal intent? I think that's fair. I don't know. I mean, does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And if that brings in an extra group to his side, which could be, but knowing that it is something that's negative and to show anybody else, it just seems horrible that someone would continue to use it if they know it's offensive. That's all. Yeah.
Well, I mean, look, he's already, I think, collected every, descendant of Timothy McVeigh, every Proud Boy, every alt-right extremist that he's ever going to get. He's got them all already, and he doesn't have to do very much to make them happy. Now he's got to find some other people, because he's got a real problem here with just, the amount of enthusiasm that Harris is generating right now. Obviously, it's honeymoon time. It's not going to last. But things that might last are, a lot of people registering to vote so they can vote for her. That's a big worry. So he's actually going to find a group of people even more disgusting than alt-right extremists. So this weekend, he went and he talked to Bitcoin people. Just kidding, Bitcoin people. You're not that disgusting. But there was a quote in the Times where there was a 24-year-old guy who was at this conference where Trump spoke. And the Times quoted him as saying, I'm not political and I've never voted. He's 24 years old. But I might vote for him. So, there are always new hearts that can be swayed. You just have to go find them.
That's good.
All right. Thanks for calling, Steve.
Thanks for taking my call.
No problem. We once again want to give you the phone number, 888-720-9677. That's 888-720-WNPR. But the piece in the Bulwark by somebody named, his last name Stoddard, made a persuasive case that this has been the worst week of of Donald Trump's roughly 10-year political life. Think about some of the other weeks, and this is the worst week, but I think it might be true. Anyway, here we go. We have Jarrett, who is hopefully driving, in a very safe manner while talking on the radio. But let's give that a try. Hi, Jarrett.
Hey there. Yeah,
Hey.
no worries. Driving safe here.
Okay.
On the CarPlay, no worries. So just switching gears a little bit here, but I saw a clip yesterday on social media, and it was just kind of comparing the 2014 Olympics opening ceremony in Russia to the 2024, and obviously the 2024 opening Olympic ceremony in France. Definitely been getting some headlines recently on, when looking at the clip, it was a comparison of kind of elegant ballroom dancing, a little bit more not necessarily, just a little more elegant, I guess is probably the word for it, compared to the, more interpretive hip-hop-esque style dancing and costumes and whatnot in France. I just wondered kind of what your take was on that, if you liked this year's, and, there's room to have these two different ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, in general, I thought that these were fun opening ceremonies. Nothing is ever going to, I think, please me as much as, if you recall, the opening of the London Olympics that involved the Queen and Daniel Craig and the kind of fake, jumping out of it, both of them jumping out of a helicopter. I loved that so much. I don't think anything in my heart will ever, light up quite the same way. But I would say what we saw there, first of all, I think most people agree Celine Dion singing that particular song in that particular environment with the wettest piano I've ever seen in my life. That was a pretty great moment. We know what she's up against, what she's going through. She certainly delivered. It was a good song choice. The Lady Gaga thing I thought was really good. I mean, one thing about Lady Gaga is she's sort of not afraid to get in where it might be over her head. I mean, we sort of see this over and over. So this isn't necessarily her style, I mean, the whole Folie Bergère thing, I think, is pretty much her style. But and it always felt like the choreography was on the verge of falling apart, but it all just kind of held together, and it was really nice. And I'm blocking the name of the hip hop artist in the gold dress, but I thought that was pretty spectacular too. There's been a whole bunch of fussing about what people thought was a Last Supper. I think we now agree it was a depiction of Bacchus or Dionysus and that kind of thing. I mean, I think what happens every time, I'm sorry to be going on so long about this, but I think every country is trying to say something about itself when it hosts the Olympics. Who are we? And who are we right now? Because France in 2024 is not the same place that it would have been 25 years ago. And I think they're sort of trying to say, okay, this is a little bit more who we are right now. I thought by and large it was pretty entertaining. I know there are also some people questioning the use of Snoop Dogg as a torchbearer. I have thoughts about that as well. I don't know. What did you think, Jared?
I think you worded it really well there right at the end of each kind of country really is trying to put themselves out there. And I think that's why the spectrum always varies so much. And, the good comparison of the, London Olympic opening is, they all like to make their own stamp on it, So I think this was France's way, and you're right. And two, it brought a lot of attention to the political climate of France, which I wasn't educated on. And then within the last, week or so, I've touched up on, and I totally see the why they chose the theme and the correlation there as well. So I think overall, I thought it was a tasteful interpretation. There, I know a lot of the nudity and, some of that was also kind of argued. So I wonder what your take is on that for any young watchers or viewers.
I don't know. It didn't trouble me, but I wasn't sitting next to a 6-year-old kid. So, I don't know. I feel as though these days, things that might have been shocking a long time ago are not anymore, but I don't have a strong opinion about it one way or the other.
Hey, well, no, I appreciate you taking time. Very eloquent answer. Fleshing it out beautifully, and thanks for having me on.
Okay, thanks. The Celine Dion thing, and I am now about to say something that many, many other people have said, sometimes on social media when I was looking at it. I'm not a Celine Dion fan particularly. But, I know people who are and who would go to any concert she gave. But I don't know how you cannot be moved by that. I don't know how. First of all, I thought it was just a very, very stirring delivery of that song. But when you know the backstory and stuff, it's just kind of amazing. All right, we'll go to Elaine. We've also got Tony in Killington, Vermont, Fred in Riverside, which could be any number of places. There are many Riversides, but let's begin with Elaine in beautiful Cromwell. You have the floor.
Great. Thanks. Thanks so much, Colin. Back to politics, even though the Olympics might be more fun to talk about. I wanted to ask what you thought about. I was watching last week. I was watching MSNBC. I'll just say it. And James Carville was on, and he was saying they were asking him about the switch in the Democratic ticket, and he said, irrespective of that, the country is still profoundly deeply, fundamentally divided. And it's really troubling that polls have been so close since, people stopped lying about going to the polls in 2016. That's what polling was the problem in 2016, if my memory serves, right? People were embarrassed to say who they were voting for. They felt shamed.
There are multiple schools of thought about that, but continue.
Okay, I'm sure there are. I'm not a pollster. I just wanted to point out that polls are very close, and irrespective of who wins, like potentially 50% of the nation is going to be really angry, and we're still going to have the same sort of deadlock, dismal sense of, absence of accountability and truth. And I don't know, I guess maybe I'm a little down today, but I just don't see how we can be at all happy about the space that we're in.
Yeah, no, first of all, I hear you, and I understand being down about it. To me, the really, really important time is, really the first 3 weeks and change of January 2025. What happens then, I mean, obviously the most important part is what happens in November, but the thing that I worry about the most is January of 2025, just having been through that last time. And when I imagine Kamala Harris winning, I also imagine, very, very frightening attempts to overturn that. I think what is going to be very necessary in November are a lot of poll watchers. I think a lot of the people who are getting very excited about Harris right now and suddenly registering to vote, I hope a lot of them also are willing to, be there, either outside the 70-foot limit or whatever, but make sure that people's rights aren't interfered with, make sure that there aren't attempts to do substitute electors and stuff like that. If we could get through this election without that kind of stuff, without some kind of armed resistance in January at the time of certification, if we can get through that, I think even if Trump gets elected, Trump getting elected, and somebody here wants to talk about Project 2025, and that's scary and worrisome. But I'm willing to live in a country that doesn't always elect the people that I like, or that elects people that I profoundly dislike. I'm willing to live in that country. I'm very apprehensive about living in a country that won't accept the results of elections if they don't go one's own way. And that, to me, that's the most frightening thing. The rest of it is, it's going to be a divisive time and people are going to be dug in. Although, if you look at Biden, Biden was able to actually get a lot of things passed with some Republican votes. And when you look at Congress, the truth is, there's Mike Johnson who's presiding over this incredibly cuckoo bird majority, but he also, within that majority, there are people you can work with. There are always people you can work with. So I don't know. I think the other thing that's going to happen is that even if Harris doesn't win, I think she's going to pull some people over the line in some of these close races. And I think one of them is right here in Connecticut. I think Jahana Hayes, who a coin toss, and maybe even not a great coin toss, maybe like a 51-49 Logan coin toss. I think Harris's presence at the top of the ticket is going to help her. It might help other people as well. I'm sure there are places around the country where Harris's place at the top of the ticket is going to bug people, and maybe they'll cast some Republican votes that they weren't going to. But, we don't really know what the future holds. And I guess, one thing that I would say is there's enough sitting right in front of us to alarm us and upset us. And we have a little bit of a tendency to borrow more trouble from the future. What if this, what if that? I don't know. There's a case to be made for living every single day, but also keeping in mind there are certain things that would be very, very hard to recover from. And I think another bizarrely and possibly violently contested set of election results might be that. So I don't think I cheered you up that much, but I don't know, like live every day, live today. We're divided today. We'll probably be divided next March, but there's only so much you can deal with.
Okay.
That was the
Colin.
That was the worst job of consoling somebody I've ever heard anybody do, but that was the best I could do too. All right. So let's do Tony. We'll do Tony and then we'll grab a break. We're kind of running through the time here. We're running past the clock a little bit, but hi, Tony, you get the floor from Killington, Vermont.
Colin, hey, it's beautiful in Vermont. Yeah, it's not raining up here, and it's cool. And I spend a lot of time. I'm from Connecticut. I'm down here a lot, down in Connecticut a lot. But I love going to Vermont in the summer because nobody really goes up there.
Yeah,
they're all going to the beach and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing I mean, I was really confused on is this Elon Musk thing. Here, the guy who's basically the father of EVs is kind of a weirdo, or
kind of?
He's definitely, well, okay. He's a weird, yeah. And he's creepy, and the whole thing is, I couldn't even imagine, I'm not in the market right now, but, this is what I was always wondering when we would get a right wing with this kind of power and money and everything who could really maybe take over. And he's not quite taken over, but he's certainly taking sides, and he has this incredible influence. I don't know. I can't buy a Tesla, and I won't as long as it's a Musk thing. But I don't know further down the road. Is this a problem that is this something we're looking at? Is just money's going to just buy everything, all these elections at some point? These super billionaires.
So you would say a Tesla is not a must-have for you. Sorry.
Someone gave me one. Fine.
So, first of all, money and elections have been a problem for a really, really long time. Hence McCain-Feingold, and then hence, unfortunately, the inability of McCain-Feingold to withstand court challenges. But it's always been. I don't know. Musk. There are a lot of ways to think about this, but let's try this one right now. For a long, long time, moneyed interests, powerful people have had a tremendous effect on the government through the way that they pump money into elections, through the way that they send very powerful and highly paid lobbyists, K Street lobbyists, in to get their way for them, either through Congress or through governmental agencies. That's just been going on forever, and it tends to go on at a pretty quiet level. You're less aware of it, but it's there. It's been there for a long time. One thing about Musk is he's mainly, I think, dedicated to being some kind of Bond villain. He's not your typical, rich power player. Those guys don't like to leave a lot of footprints. Yeah, we know about the Koch brothers and stuff like that, but we don't know a lot about the Koch brothers. We don't know what kind of white cat they like to have on their lap. But Musk really, it's really about him. And I think also his loyalties are often situationally determined. You may have seen that he just very, very recently announced that he's denying that he committed to spending $45 million per month supporting Trump's campaign. He said, I never said that. I never said I was going to do anything about that like that. And the reason he's saying that is Trump isn't as cool this week as he was 2 weeks ago. And Musk wants to be cool. He wants to be the guy who hosts Saturday Night Live. He wants to be the guy that people talk about. He wants to be the guy who owns his own social media platform, which is something that like Jack Welch and Lee Iacocca and people like that probably wouldn't have done. I don't know. They both those are bad examples because they really liked a lot of attention too. But for Musk, I think it's the attention, and he will do stuff to get attention. I'm less scared of that than I am of what has gone on for decades, which is a lot of quiet influence in money over politics.
The Koch brothers is a good example. Yeah, that's even worse. Yeah,
right. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, the Koch brothers are basically like the two gazillionaires in Trading Places, made flesh. Anyway, thanks for your call. Enjoy Killington. You're making us feel bad because it's really rainy and disgusting and horrible here. We'll take a break. The number is 888-720-9677. That could be otherwise understood as 888-720-WNPR.
Was I too much, or was I a threat to the vision you had that you hadn't found yet? I gave you some space, 'cause I wanted to see if I mattered enough, would you come back to me?
1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
All right, we're back. The numbers are 888-720-9677, 888-720-WNPR. So one of the questions that I have right now in terms of the rules of these episodes of Ask or Tell Me Anything is, do we have a fast lane for celebrities? In other words, do celebrities get to jump the line? Is it like Studio 54? Is there a special rope? We open it up, we let them through. Because if that's the case, I have to take Iman's call next. I think we do. I don't know. And maybe she doesn't even want that kind of treatment. Maybe I'll wait a second, but Iman from New Haven is on hold here. Let's go to Ruth and Fred, and then we'll go to Iman. We've also got Hardy. We've got a lot of people who want to talk about a lot of different things. But Ruth, you have the floor. Oh, sorry. I should actually let you have the floor. Hi, there you are. Ruth from Sandy Hook.
Okay. Hi, good afternoon. So I am the last thing from a celebrity, that's for sure. I won't
have that. I won't have you say that.
Well, I'm an older Jewish grandmother, and I'm very concerned about Donald Trump speaking to white Christians, to saying, you've got to go out and vote this election and you'll never have to vote again. Because he means that, of course. He wants to be president for life. He's shown and speaks about being dictator. He worships all of the oligarchs and, the North Korean and the Chinese and the Russians. And that's what he wants for himself. But the fact that he's directing it specifically to white Christians to make sure that they understand if they vote for him, that they'll get the country that I guess they want, and he certainly wants, where they'll take, the education department away and journalism away and, just run it like Russia and China.
Yeah, I think we've moved on we're a long way now from the days when a politician could say something that would get them in trouble. I mean, Trump just doesn't seem to be able to get in trouble for saying, that's just an outrageous statement. Now, I believe he or his campaign have put out the word that it was a joke, but is it a joke? I mean, Margaret Sullivan.
Of course it is.
Yeah, I would encourage reading Margaret Sullivan's column that dropped, I think, this morning. Margaret's just great anyway, and we love her. But she makes this argument that you should believe him when it's the Maya Angelou thing. You should believe him when he tells you who he is, and I think in a way, forcing this to stick to him a little bit would be a very healthy thing for everybody. I don't mean to cut you off here, but we do have a lot of people on the line here. And meanwhile, excitement is building because Iman is coming on very soon. But before that happens, just to be fair, Fred has been waiting longer in Riverside, wherever that might be. Hi, Fred. You have the floor.
Hey, Colin. How are you?
Good.
Thanks for taking my call. I love these Colin Unplugged segments. You got to keep doing these.
I think there are a lot of people who wish we would do a Colin Unplugged segment where they would just unplug me and it would be quiet for 45 minutes.
Anyway, I was just curious on your take of this Heritage Project, the 2025, how serious you think that it's going to be, like, implemented and or some of the things that have come out in it, because it's pretty draconian. And I was just wondering what your feeling is about that.
Yeah, I would say, by the way, in terms of the emails that I get, I haven't even mentioned this to my staff yet, but the emails that I get, the thing that has been asked for the most is that we should do an entire episode trying to explain Project 2025. I also want to say that here in Connecticut, my friend and colleague Susan Campbell is doing a great show. I think she's doing it on her Substack. She's sort of having people pick a part of Project 2025 and do their own analysis of it and publish it. I think I'm describing it correctly. If I haven't, then Susan will probably kick me really hard. But I think that's a really valuable service. I mean, part of the problem is, I don't know if this is intentional or not, but it's 900 freaking pages long. And sometimes when you produce something like that, one of the things that you accomplish is that a lot of people just don't, it's hard to absorb. It's just really, really big. The one thing I would say to this, and it maybe kind of builds a little bit on what I said to Elaine, is, yeah, you could have a Project 2025 and it can have all kinds of things in it that seem an awful lot like stuff that Donald Trump would want anyway. I think in particular of the replacement of traditional kind of civil service agency employees in government, replacing them with loyalists. Because one of the problems that Trump identified, it was his idea of a problem, not ours, is that there were that the layer of people who were political appointees didn't go deep enough. And so as you drilled down a little bit in the handling of an issue, you started to run into people in the Justice Department and the EPA, whatever, who wouldn't do things because they knew those things were either illegal or contrary to existing regulations and stuff like that. And so in a way, I mean, it's all a little bit scary. You're right. That one scares me the most because I know it's really something that Trump wants. If he gets in, he wants the layer of loyalists, the people whose primary qualification is that they're willing to do what he wants them to do and that will never turn their back on him or betray him, or it's like kind of a Rick Astley test. That I know that's incredibly important to him, and I know he wants it a lot, and I think it would be really bad. So, I mean, I think we should worry about it. I think we in the media have to do more to inform people, make people. And people know enough to say Project 2025 now, like they're talking about, Thanos or something. But we need to tell them exactly what it is. But thanks for bringing it up. And now, ladies and gentlemen, your wait is over. The waiting is over. Iman from New Haven is joining us right now. Hi, Iman. You're on the air.
Hi, Colin. So I'm going to ignore everything you said about me and just go into my question. So this year I feel like is the most excited I've been for the Summer Olympics. And I've been watching on my iPad on Peacock and like able to jump from sport to sport to sport. And it's like this amazing smorgasbord of like everything. But then sometimes I'm like, this is so weird. Like, why do we do these things? Like, I don't know. It's just like culturally, like anthropologically, it just feels at times like this is a weird thing that humans do. And so my question for you is, if like a very sentient alien being came from the stars and came to Earth and saw us during the Olympics, like what would they make of all of this?
Well, the first thing they would say, they would find Simone Biles and say, this planet is not worthy of you. We would like you to come with us. That would be their first move, would be to basically take Simone Biles away from us and offer her a better life on some other planet. Ideally, one with lower gravity, although she doesn't seem to be having a lot of problems with the gravity we have here. But I think I know what you're saying. It's sort of a weird combination of, a kind of pure dedication to sports, often sports that are largely invisible to us most of the time.
Yes.
And also elements of jingoism. I mean, people, really want USA or whatever country they're from to do really well. All of that bumps up against also, it's weird because you've got the people who are the kiteboarding competition. Some of the sports do seem like they're just computer generated at random. What else could we do? Let's combine kite and board.
Like
kite and board.
These rules randomly and just like created a sport out of nowhere.
Right.
And then this isn't even representative of all the sports that are played by humans on this earth, really and truly.
Yeah. And then so there's like, exactly. And I think that's good. And then sometimes you're watching basketball and going, oh, LeBron James, I wonder if he's good. I think I've never heard of him. Some of these people are so incredibly familiar and some of it's so unbelievably obscure. And, the coverage, I'm glad there are as many choices as there are now, because the coverage used to tilt really, I mean, you'd see mostly gymnastics and swimming all through the Summer Olympics. But really, there's so many different ways now to get the coverage. I think that's great. I just want to say one thing about Biles. Because I was hoping this would come up. I was just watching her last night and I was thinking there might not be an athlete, in the space of a quarter century who is as compelling as she is. Her story is amazing. Her abilities are amazing. I mean, she's the best gymnast in the world. There are people who think, at least in sort of modern, recordable performance, that she might very well be the best gymnast ever. But there was also that whole thing where she had the twisties in Tokyo, which touched off a really interesting conversation about mental health. Her mother got mad at Snoop Dogg, which that was fun. But no, seriously about Biles, I don't know. I mean, we've seen there are some really great definitive athletes. I just mentioned one of them, LeBron James. I think Serena Williams would certainly be another one. You think about maybe Michael Jordan going back, but I don't, go back a little bit further. Bruce Jenner, that turned out a little different than anybody expected. But I think Biles, there's something about her. If I had to sort of pick an athlete for that extraterrestrial, see, I haven't forgotten the premise of your question. If you want to understand like how good this could be, first of all, watch her do what she does. Because there ain't nobody does it like that. And then watch her shrug off a calf injury and still do it, and then think about the story she's told over the last, say, 12 years. I don't know. I mean, this could be the Simone Biles era that we just happen to be living in.
Yeah, no, I could see that. Definitely she's the pinnacle of athletic success, maybe this century, half of last century, more, I totally see that. I do. I mean, as someone who used to identify as an athlete, I don't know, I find all sorts of stories across the athletic spectrum very interesting, not just the people who rise to the top, but also the people who you never hear about, the people who sort of give their whole lives to something and never see the product of it. That also is really interesting to me because it says something about that human want and desire, even if you cannot achieve greatness. I don't know. Those are also interesting anthropological questions for me as well. And
philosophical questions. I mean, what it comes down to, and I think you're pointing at it right now, is you have to do something for the love of it. You can't do it imagining or trying to promise yourself that you'll get fame and fortune out of it, because that might not happen no matter what it is. And it's certainly not going to happen if it's some obscure sport that, people think about once every 4 years. You have to do it because you love it. And I think an awful lot of people there are doing it because you love it, because they love it. And then, I mean, I've known Olympic athletes. There's another layer that goes on top of that, which is, okay, yes, I love what I'm doing, but I would also like to get the gold medal. So I don't know. As usual, you sparked some interesting thoughts. That's how you became a celebrity, really. And we have to take a little break right now. That's Iman from New Haven. We'll take that break. We'll come back. We've got callers, but you can call 888-720-9677, 888-720-WNPR.
Sweet pea, apple of my eye. Don't know when, and I don't know why. You're the only reason I keep coming home. But sweet pea, what's this all about? Don't get your way, all you do is fuss and pout. But you're the only reason I keep coming home.
And we're back. Thanks to, the Jedi Master himself. Gene Amatruda is the technical producer today. Bradley O'Connor was around here doing stuff as well. Jonathan McPants is the producer of this episode and the person screening your calls at 888-720-9677. That's 888-720-WNPR. Okay, here's Tyler. Tyler's a really good question here. I think we should take him right away. We've also got Billy and Hardy. We'll get to all of them. Hi, Tyler. You're on the air.
Hey, so my question is, what you think the most impactful way to get involved in the election if somebody wants to get involved?
It really is a really good question. I mean, first of all, there are a lot of ways to answer this. Okay, so I have friends who, and I think this is sort of out of the question for most people, but what they've been doing for a number of cycles now. They currently live in Portland, Oregon. Before that, they lived in San Francisco. But they'll just go to a place. They'll go to a place that's a swing state. They'll go to Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, whatever, and they'll volunteer there, and they'll help out there, whether it's door knocking or whatever. And they also go online and try to rally their friends to make donations to specific campaigns or to PACs that may help out with specific campaigns. So, I mean, one challenge that we have here in Connecticut is there's fairly little that's at stake. There's the aforementioned Hayes and Logan campaign. I mean, it's really unlikely that anybody but Kamala Harris is going to take all of the state's electoral votes. But there's the Hayes-Logan campaign on the 5th, and that's going to be a very, very close race. I'm feeling like it might be a little less close than I had thought. And then the other thing is, wherever you live, there are races, right? I mean, not all politics are presidential. There are House seats and Senate seats here in Connecticut that are up in this cycle. And there are some we anticipate some fairly close races. Once again, the notion of stakes there is a little bit relative because Democrats will control the Connecticut House and Senate kind of no matter what. But I mean, so I don't know. One thing you could do is you could pick a race that's really close. I think the other thing that I mentioned before that it's going to be really important is join an organization that is going to be around on election day, watching polls, helping people. You know, as long as you're not Larry David, maybe you can give water to people who are waiting in long lines. You know, I think anything that anybody does with good intentions and with a good heart is probably, you know, a good thing. You're asking what's the best thing, what's the most optimal thing. I guess, yeah, try to pick something where there's a narrow margin and see if you can make that narrow margin work on behalf of the candidate you prefer. I don't know. Did you have any thoughts about this?
Well, the only experience I really have is I've gone in the Colin centers on election day, and it doesn't seem like I'm doing much to help anything because it's the last day of the election and people don't even really want to answer the phone, you know, too much. So I just was hoping for some ideas, I guess, that would be like a little bit more impactful.
Yeah, well, you know, so which your calling centers are, they fall under the category known these days by the acronym GOTV, get out the vote. And it really is important, and particularly if there's, you know, people who need transportation and you can hook them up with the transportation they need to get there. I live with somebody who was a campaign professional for many years, and she has a lot of stories about that, about just phone banking on election day. And in a close race, it really can make a difference. And there are, you know, there are some politicians and political machines who are just really, really good at this, and it just makes the difference. I think about 2001, where when Eddie Perez won it was a primary. It was on September 11th of 2001. There was a primary between Eddie Perez and Bob Ludgen and in Hartford, the Democratic primary for mayor is typically the election because there's no Republican presence. You know, and I think probably, I mean, I was a little distracted that day, but I actually did, at the end of the day, at the end of my workday of covering 9/11, I went down to Perez headquarters because I heard that he'd won, and I wanted to see that. And I think they probably won that on GOTV. I think they won that, you know, by providing transportation, by, you know, targeting, identifying voters. It doesn't all start on election day either. Ideally, if you're running a good campaign, you know who the people are that you need to find by phone on election day and make sure they have transportation. So I don't think that's a meaningless thing at all. But yeah, a lot of the work gets done sooner than that. So if there's something you believe in, volunteer, and you know, it'll feel meaningful. But thanks for asking such a great question, too.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So here we go. We're going to move on. We're going to go to Billy in West Haven, and then we'll go to Hardy in Wallingford. Hi, Billy. You have the floor.
Thanks for taking the call.
Sure.
Just going back to one of the previous calls about the opening ceremonies of the Olympics, I saw it as like being very intentional, kind of meant to provide a juxtaposition to maybe some of the more closed-off societies, given the current geopolitical climate. It just felt very intentional in a way that was meant to express we're a free and open society, which France has long been vocal about. And I think, you know, it was a very targeted message, especially considering this is the first Olympics since the invasion of Ukraine. And so the sentiment in Europe has shifted largely to protecting the liberal democratic order. And I just want to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, it's a proof of concept is the backlash, the sort of misinformed backlash to the Bacchanalia scene, to the, you know, the Dionysian or Bacchanalian scene with the mostly naked blue guy who was supposed to be the god Bacchus. But I mean, here in the States, it was the Last Supper. They just oh no, all those drag queens and people like those are all supposed to be, you know, the disciples, and it was the Last Supper, and then they desecrated and profaned it. And that's kind of proof of concept that they were so eager to be outraged in that particular way, in that, you know, very closed-minded way, that they saw something that wasn't even there and they missed the point of it.
Exactly.
So, you know, yeah, I mean, I think that is very much France. I mean, obviously, France is going through its own stuff right now, you know, and the Le Pen-led movements are eerily and disquietingly reminiscent of some of the stuff that's going on in this country. But also, France has always been a place where, you know, you kind of go and and cut loose a little bit. So, and I don't know. I do agree that they were trying to say something about themselves. And I think that they succeeded in saying it. And they made some people very unhappy and other people very enticed. So, yeah. Anyway, yeah. Anything else, Billy?
No, that's it. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for your call. And now we've got Hardy in Wallingford. And then if we have time, I want to say one more thing that's connected to the Olympics. But anyway, let's talk to Hardy. Hi. You have the floor right now.
Hey, Colin. No, thanks for creating this analogy for sports and politics. I think almost 350 million of us will be taking part of this big sports across the country. So, but I think it comes down to individual votes and individual people. And one of the things that I learned over the time of talking to friends and family is that it comes down to personal issues. And then I look at people who in large capitalism power, like Elon Musk from previous callers, and I did a deep dive over the weekend on why would he change to support somebody with $45 million a month. And when you do a deep dive like this on somebody, like he was voting Democratic until the EV summit and inflation reduction credit IRA meeting where Tesla was not invited by the Democratic. So it's like these are the kind of things that tips people off from their balance, I believe, when they grow up a baby like SpaceX and Tesla. But my bigger point was it comes down to individual and what bothers them on the personal level. And unfortunately, in this case, we have very powerful person switching the side with 194 million followers and creates a much larger impact. But I don't think my research showed that he has not donated 45 million.
No, he has actually, he's walked that back in his public comments recently. He is denying that he ever pledged to do it. I mean, look, just to reiterate kind of what I said before. I mean, first of all, Elon Musk, yes, obviously rich guys want to get richer. They want to get more powerful. They want all those things. His strategy has been very strange. I mean, buying Twitter and then just, making so many people mad. Scott Galloway said it was like spending a lot of money on a sports franchise where every night people boo you from the stands. But I think also Musk is very interested in sort of being cool in his own very stunted way. As I say, he wanted to be the guy who hosted Saturday Night Live. And right now it's cooler to be Kamala than it is to be Donald. And that's going to mean something to him. He's got more money than he can ever possibly spend. My guess is he's chasing other kinds of approval right now or fearing disapproval. Anyway, we have to stop. I wanted to talk about Canada and cheating. I'm so disappointed, Canada. We count on you not to do things like that.
The number you have reached has been disconnected.